Hello again, YouTube fam. So, the first video I posted was about my testimony of becoming a Christian. The second one was about basically what happened with church after becoming a Christian and what I wish would have happened and what I'd like to see happen in churches going forward. So this video now, I just prayed and I asked God, because in my second video I mentioned how when I prayed about, asking God what should have happened with church, right? What should have been the first thing that happened as me being a new Christian? And, basically the answer I got was simple intimacy with Jesus. So kind of diving deeper into that, I decided to ask God just now, and I'm going to pull it up on my phone because I like to write these things out when I talk to God. What are tools every believer, both new and old, needs to begin building and practicing intimacy with Jesus? So I see Jesus standing in front of someone, and this someone is studying Jesus, his nature, his demeanor, the way he treats people, and what he has to say. This person listens to what Jesus has already said and to what he still has to say. Then I see this person alone, and they're crying out to Jesus during a struggle, hoping and searching for an answer. Jesus says, "Get quiet and wait for my voice." This person sits still, quiets their mind from their pain and unanswered questions, and waits on Jesus to speak. Finally, Jesus whispers to them faintly, and the person hears what they need to hear. At first, it's a little bit of information, and it's fuzzy, like there's not a whole lot to go on. But as this person learns more about Jesus and his love, they start to hear more words from Jesus and hear them more clearly, and this ability grows and develops over time. So I would say this is more or less like what happened with me. I hope that part has already been helpful, but I want to also talk about, again, how my personal experience kind of was similar to that. So one thing that happened, this may be a separate topic, and sorry if I'm kind of blending, but you may have heard already about something called the baptism of the Holy Spirit, or the filling of the Spirit, which is different from the dwelling. So the dwelling is typically, from what I've heard being taught, it's what happens when you do get saved or become born again. Same thing. Is that the Holy Spirit comes to dwell on the inside of you. So he's not just a outside force or presence affecting and influencing your decisions. He's now actually living on the inside of you. And there's a verse that says that God gave you the Holy Spirit as an inheritance. As a deposit. Guaranteeing your inheritance to come, and it also says that you're sealed to him. So biblically, and from the Orthodox Christian perspective that you hear in most Protestant churches, I would think, once you have the Holy Spirit, he's there forever. It's not like, once you sin or you do something bad or whatever, that he's just gone and he's not there, which it's important, and I can talk about this another time, is learning to talk to God in the midst of, you being sinful, and even right after the sin. Because, confession is one thing, but it's, also important to just say, hey, I have a struggle. I know I'm going to mess up right now, but I just pray that you walk with me through this. Anyway, that's another time for more intimacy with Jesus tips, but that's just something that's helped me. But anyway, so back to the baptism of the Holy Spirit. I went to this charismatic church one time. It was an Assemblies of God, and the message of that service happened to be all about the baptism of the Holy Spirit and what that meant. And it involved, speaking in tongues, and just for whatever it's worth, I'm going to take a break from that story and just say there's a great video on YouTube. It's by John Bevere, Bevere, called "Do Not Forbid Speaking in Tongues," and it talks about 4 different types of tongues actually, and helping you understand that, when you have tongues as a prayer language, as a spiritual gift that comes from the baptism of the Holy Spirit, that's different from the tongues as a sign to unbelievers, meaning actually speaking other languages, and it's different from tongues for interpretation or, public tongues that are used for prophetic ministry, because somebody needs to be there to interpret that, and that is important. And but that's not even like a language like Hebrew or Aramaic or something. That's actually tongues for teaching that need to be interpreted by someone who has the gift of interpretation. So anyway, I basically just told you the video, so maybe you don't have to watch it now, but that's basically what it is. This baptism of the Holy Spirit teaching was a teaching on that baptism and what it means, but that includes as kind of a demonstration or as evidence that you have been baptized in the Holy Spirit, having tongues as a prayer language. So I remember being at the front of the room after service for like ministry, for prayer. The youth pastor was there. Another youth pastor story. Youth pastors are awesome. What can I say? And so I was there and I was praying for this gift to happen. And he was basically trying to coach me through it, which was so cool because I'd never had anyone do that. And say, just open your mouth and say what's in your heart to come out. And I was just like so hesitant and nothing was happening. And it's like, I didn't want to fake it. I wanted it to be real. So and I didn't try making any syllables or anything or any sounds. And he's finally said, hey, look, man, if it doesn't happen, just know that we're still here for you and we love you. And I'm getting emotional just thinking about that. But for whatever reason, it's like when he said that, something triggered or something clicked in me. And I started sorry, didn't want to break down in the middle of a video, but I started speaking in tongues, and it just felt like there's another book. I'm not telling you go read this, by the way. I'm just telling you what I remember as a frame of reference. There was a book called The Cross and the Switchblade by David Wilkerson. That was actually the first time I had ever heard someone describe what speaking in tongues is like. And basically, the way David Wilkerson describes it in the book, I don't remember the exact words, but that it was like a bubbling well. So just imagine like a well going and just like coming up out of the water, and maybe that's why it sounds like that. I don't know, but that's basically what happened. And I started saying, syllables, what came to my heart to say, and I was praying out loud and I was crying, and he was like cheering me on. It's like, yes, this is awesome, and so that was the first time that had happened. Well, I kind of didn't really pay much attention later on to what had happened to me, or continue practicing that praying in tongues. So fast forward to about 6 years later, 2015, and I read a book from Joyce Meyer called Intimacy with God. And she talked again about the baptism of the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues, and went through. She actually answered a lot of my objections in that book. Again, it's Intimacy with God, Joyce Meyer. And because I had questions about it. I'm like, was this real? Like, was this even a thing? And so I read some of this book, and she went through like, what tongues is, what tongues isn't. If you don't have it, it doesn't mean that you're not saved or that you don't have the Holy Spirit, because that's the dwelling part of it. That's what every actual believer has, is the dwelling of the Holy Spirit. But this is the filling. And the example that she gave is like, when you have an empty cup, you can pour some clean water in it, and you have a little bit of it in there. So there's something there. But there's definitely a difference in the way you experience God's intimacy when that cup is full to the brim. And of course, life is going to, take something out of that cup again, but then you just go back and get the cup full again. And that's the way that she explained it, is that, the baptism of the Holy Spirit is your first time having that fresh filling all the way to the brim. And so I prayed for that while I was alone in my room after reading something about that. And I started speaking in tongues again. And this time it had more syllables, more sounds to it that sounded different from even the time before. And I think I heard something from someone on YouTube or wherever that, it was from that same book, Intimacy with God, where Joyce Meyer said that, even her own prayer language started to sound different over time. And so that was exactly what was happening to me. My sounds in praying in tongues started to sound different. And I thought, okay, that was cool. Maybe I leveled up. I don't know. It felt like an upgrade. And so anyway, okay, I'm making this video way too long. Anyway, so that's one part of intimacy with Jesus, is experiencing the baptism of the Holy Spirit. I recommend it. Intimacy with God by Joyce Meyer was a good book that kind of helped me understand that process a little better. And there are other great teachers too. Again, that John Bevere video on YouTube, Do Not Forbid Speaking in Tongues, helps explain what the prayer language is and how that's different from other types of tongues. But yeah, so I'm sure there are other teachers out there who talk about the same thing. Hope that helps somebody. And now I'm going to stop this video and make a part 2 about other ways that helped my intimacy with Jesus.